What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a new movie that was released on Shudder recently. At first, I had to do a double take because this movie is called The Twin, and I was like, I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago I reviewed another movie that came out on Shudder that was also called The Twin, and sure enough, I was right. Very different movies, but apparently this is an incredibly popular name to pick for your horror movie, and I did not know what this movie was going to be about. Obviously, you have ideas because of the title, but I didn't even watch a trailer for this or read a description. One of the very rare instances that I just clicked on a movie on Shudder and watched it. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about The Twin. The Twin is directed by J.C. Doler. After the tragic loss of his son, a man begins experiencing terrifying visions of a shadowy figure that looks like himself. As reality unravels, he must confront his past and the supernatural force haunting him before it consumes him completely. So, I was excited to watch this movie. I always look forward to watching movies on Shudder, as I've said a million times on this channel because I review a ton of Shudder's content. I really respect them for what they do and giving independent artists a voice and an ability to put their movies out there. And what I will say is, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I definitely think it has its fair share of flaws and cliches associated with films that are similar in the genre. Like there were some moments that I'm like, okay, this isn't necessarily new or reinventing the wheel by any means. But what I will say is the way this movie looks at how someone processes grief and trauma, even though it can be a bit on the nose in moments, I found it to be incredibly effective. And there were times where I felt emotionally moved by it. And while it's not necessarily the scariest movie imaginable, it does utilize horror to convey trauma in a way that I do think is very effective. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the movie today. So, at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Nicholas, who lives with his wife Charlie and their young son Jacob. And the three of them seem to live a very happy life together. We see kind of just their day to day routine. And Nicholas is an artist. And we see early in the movie, Jacob is like watching TV in the living room while Nicholas is just one room over and he's painting. And something happens with their young son and he dies early in the movie. There's a horrible accident and it completely shakes up their world and completely puts a damper on their marriage. You can tell neither one of them really knows how to process that grief accurately, which causes Charlie and Nicholas to kind of have this separation. Well, we saw in a flashback something horrible happened to Nicholas when he was younger involving his grandmother at their old house. And we're not 100% sure what, but it's held on in his life. He has acquired his grandmother's house, and Charlie sort of recommends you need to get away. You need to go do something to like get through this. We're clearly not getting through this together. Why don't you go to this place by yourself and try to process this trauma? We're also introduced to the character of Dr. Beaumont, played by Robert Longstreet, who has been assigned to Nicholas because of something that's happened through all of this grief and trauma that needs to have someone keep an eye out on him and check up on him. And the entirety of the film is Nicholas getting back to his grandmother's house and seeing visions and strange things that start to plague him. And the entirety of the film is watching him go through this experience while also trying to process the grief and the trauma of losing his son. So, like I said, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, even though I think that it has its fair share of flaws. I do want to talk about the positives for starters. I really enjoyed the performances in this movie, especially the lead actor. I feel like that he had a lot of moments where he had to really kind of dive into the grief and the trauma overwhelming him to an extreme degree. And I feel like he managed to pull it off in a way that felt very authentic. I could see the breakdown being something very realistic that could happen to people. I also think the actress Alexa Palladino, who plays Charlie, did a phenomenal job too. There were a couple of moments where she was going through moments of grief that I felt like were very effective and realistic. And that's what, whenever you're making a movie about this heavy of subject matter, I feel like casting actors that can bring that real feeling of trauma and grief through it through in their performances is so incredibly needed. And I thought they all did a really nice job. Robert Longstreet, who plays Dr. Beaumont, was one of the highlights of the movie for me. I felt like he brought real charisma, and there were moments that I really enjoyed how he tried to work with Nicholas's character, and I felt like he was a lot of the personality of the film, and something that I really enjoyed. I really appreciated his performance and thought that he did a great job. I loved the environment and the setting of this movie in this kind of old, dilapidated house. And whenever there was horrific imagery on screen, I felt like it was complemented by this setting. There's something about utilizing this kind of old, decrepit, broken down house as sort of representative of how you feel after losing a loved one, where like it might have been a home at one point, it might have been this whole functioning place, but now the wallpaper's peeling, things are falling apart. And I think that that was a really cool way to kind of be representative of what the character was experiencing. And some of the horrific imagery when it comes to him seeing like the evil reflection of himself, and some of those moments might be things that we've seen in films before, but I do think there were some effective moments that really kind of sent chills up my spine. And I was appreciative that the director was able to convey the real life horror of a situation occurring like this, but also managed to do it in a way that felt just like a fun horror movie. And like I said, the movie does have its fair share of cliches. There's some jump scare moments. There's some things that you can predict if you've watched a lot of horror movies before. And I feel like the direction it goes is a little on the nose in the end, but I feel like those are minimal gripes in comparison to the way that I felt about how the director conveyed that feeling of grief and trauma and like suicidal ideation, where you lose someone you love, and even if it's not your fault, you blame yourself for it, and it just consumes every waking moment of your life, to where even like pursuing your passions or trying to just get through the day to day, or still loving your significant other when such a big part of your life was this child that you've given birth to. And like, obviously, he was the one at home. So I'm sure in her mind, she sort of puts the blame on him, even though it's not necessarily his fault. And there's just so many complex emotion when it comes to something this extreme. But I think the director handles it in a way that it never feels corny, it never feels ridiculous, it feels very poignant. And I really liked the incorporation of the doctor in this movie and how he handled these situations and helped Nicholas process his grief, and was willing to let him be mean sometimes and kind of overact out, because everyone does in that type of a situation. And while, like I said, some of the more horrific elements can be a little cliche, there were some moments where I was like, okay, I've seen this type of a thing before. I really respect the director for utilizing this particular type of film to convey something very powerful about moving through trauma and grief and trying to get through the other side, and some of the difficult things that might get in the way while you're on that particular journey. And I enjoyed this movie. It's very slow burn. If that's not your thing, you probably will not enjoy this movie, but I thought that it was a really effective build up, and I thought the payoff at the end of the movie was really satisfying as well. And I think if you're looking for something to watch on Shudder, The Twin is definitely worth your time. So have you seen The Twin? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't know what to expect when I got into it at first, but I really liked it a lot. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.